President al-Assad issues 2 decrees for establishing financial prosecution office and provision courts. Condemnations of Aleppo terrorist attacks which killed and wounded dozens continue. Al-Jafari stresses that the terrorism of armed groups in Syria has reached an unprecedented level and the Turkish government plays a destructive role in this. President Nijad, during his meeting with Al-Halaqi, stresses that the Syrian crisis can only be solved through dialogue. Good afternoon and welcome to our news for today. President Bashar al-Assad has issued Legislative Decree No. 9 of 2013 to set up primitive and appellate criminal courts in every governorate to consider supply issues. The President also issued Decree No. 10 of 2013 stipulating the establishment of a financial public prosecution to consider crimes related to public funds. Minister of Justice Dr. Najm al-Ahmed said the decree about setting up criminal courts to consider supply issues in every governorate has been declared because supply issues are closely connected to the livelihood of citizens and the state's economic security system. Mr. al-Ahmed pointed out that establishing such courts would contribute to realizing economic and social stability and fulfilling the objective of speeding up the settlement of conflicts related to supplies, thus implementing the principle of judicial reform and development. The Minister of Justice said the Legislative Decree No. 10 on establishing a financial public prosecution specialized in crimes related to public funds would limit the number of financial crimes which constitute an extremely dangerous phenomenon in view of the negative impact they leave on society. He added that establishing a public prosecution for public funds and financial investigation departments is an application of the principle of specialization and serves to create factors that would hasten the process of settling lawsuits and safeguarding public funds, as well as bringing to account any perpetrators of relevant crimes. Iran severely condemned the terrorist attack on the University of Aleppo, which killed many students. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ramin Mehman-Parast said that these terrorist attacks will only strengthen the Syrian people to combat terrorism, pointing out that such acts refer to the weakness and frustration felt by the terrorist groups who are faced by the solid determination of the Syrian people. Also, the gathering of nationalist forces in Jordan condemned by the strongest terms the terrorist act committed by the gangs of treason, pointing out that the approach of systematic killing and destruction followed by those criminal groups clearly demonstrates that they have nothing to do with reform or democracy, but they aim at undermining the nation through toppling Syria, which is the last bastion in their faith. In Palestine, Sheikh Salman Antir, head of the national activities in occupied Palestine, also condemned the terrorist attack on Aleppo University, asserting that this act is part of the war in Syria and its people. Yesterday, an armed terrorist group had attacked the University of Aleppo by 2 rocket shells, killing many students and injuring others on the first day of the exams at the university. The victims also included a number of citizens who were displaced from their houses due to the terrorist acts and had been taking refuge at the university campus. Terrorists detonated 2 booby-trapped cars that carried large quantities of explosives in Idlib, causing several casualties and injuring a number of citizens. The first explosion took place in Az-Zira'a Square and the second in Al-Mutlaq Square. 22 citizens were killed as a result and 30 others were wounded. Huge material damage was inflicted on houses and infrastructure. Meanwhile, an army unit has destroyed 2 booby-trapped cars driven by suicidal terrorists terrorists on Idlib al-Mastoum road in the governorate suburbs. They had been intended to target citizens and law enforcement troops. In Dar'a suburbs, the authorities seized 2 vehicles carrying 290 missiles through mortar shells, 3 APG launchers, anti-aircraft missiles in Tell Mtawq near Enkhel. The specialized authorities today seized a warehouse for explosive devices in a farm in Khatmallo village in As-Salamiyya suburbs in Hama, containing 18 explosive charges weighing between 20 and 150 kilograms. The engineering units dismantled the charges that had been made by the terrorists in the form of iron cylinders and barrels stuffed with highly explosive materials. Austrian President Heinz Fischer has underlined the need for all forces in Syria to sit at the table of dialogue to find a solution to the crisis so that the Syrian people would be able to realize their aspirations. In a word he delivered on the occasion of the New Year, President Fischer called on all those who want to see the violence stop and who care for the future of the Syrian people to support dialogue between the opposition and the government in order to reach a permanent solution to the crisis. President Fischer stressed that the attempt to replace the regime in Syria with another through military force cannot be the solution that meets the desire of the Syrian people. Syria's permanent representative to the UN, Dr. Bashar al-Jafari, has stressed that the terrorist activities committed by the armed terrorist groups in Syria have reached dangerous levels in terms of quality and quantity. The suspect goals which some countries seek to achieve by supporting terrorism and extremism in Syria have started to appear on the surface, al-Jafari said. Delivering Syria's statement during a Security Council session held last night under the title A Comprehensive Approach to Counter-Terrorism, al-Jafari said the terrorist groups in Syria seize the opportunity whenever a Security Council session is held to carry out terrorist acts in Syria, and this is what happened for the 10th or 20th times when the terrorist attack hit the University of Aleppo, targeting students who came to do their exams and claiming the lives of 82 of them and injuring 162 others, al-Jafari said. The Syrian ambassador lashed out at the countries who are going on with their policies in terms of publicly supporting the terrorist organizations in Syria, despite the late international acknowledgement of the existence of armed terrorist groups in the country and that some of them are affiliated to Al-Qaeda. Al-Jafari highlighted those countries' support to the terrorist groups through supplying them with money, weapons, training and shelter, in addition to issuing fatwas and providing political and media support. The terrorist activities of the armed terrorist groups in Syria have reached dangerous levels both in terms of quantity or quality, Al-Jafari pointed out. He highlighted these groups' attacks against the state public facilities and infrastructure with the aim of causing comprehensive destruction and drying out the citizens' livelihood resources. He asserted that the aim of this blind terrorism is undermining the Syrian state and society, not spreading democracy or reforming. He concluded by saying that ignoring the violations committed by some countries has become shameful, and the exploitation of the Syrian blood for implementing political terrorist agendas has become flagrant, wondering how could moves be taken to fight terrorism in Mali while at the same time terrorism in Syria is being backed, armed and encouraged. Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad renewed his confidence that the Syrian people will overcome the difficult circumstances and that Syria will pass over the crisis into safety. During his meeting with Prime Minister Wael al-Halaqi in Tehran, President Ahmadinejad focused on the peaceful solution for the crisis, saying that the only solution is by the cessation of violence and through national dialogue to reach the democratic option and elections. President Nejad voiced Iran's support for Syria's government and people to regain stability and to face the different kinds of challenges and the support of reform and peaceful solution for the crisis. The Iranian president called on the governments of both countries to boost cooperation relations between Syria and Iran. For his part, Prime Minister Wael al-Halaqi briefed the Iranian president on the terrorism which is supported by regional and international powers against Syria, asserting the Syrian people's ability to face it thanks to the cohesion and the national unity. Bilateral relations were reviewed during the meeting, especially concerning economic and financial cooperation, as well as providing gas, fuel, oil and oil derivatives and the support of electric power. Prime Minister al-Halaqi and Iranian President's First Deputy Mohammad Rida Rahimi held talks discussing joint cooperation between both countries. Prime Minister Halaqi explained the economic situation in Syria and the difficulties suffered due to the economic sanctions and the repeated attacks by the terrorist groups on the oil, gas and electric sectors. Al-Halaqi extended thanks to Iran's government and people for their stances in support of Syria and its fight against the conspiracy that targets resistance in the whole region. For his part, Rahimi referred to Syria's historic stances in support of Iran, renewing his country's full support of Syria by providing necessary assistance, especially in the fields of oil and electricity. Prime Minister al-Halaqi and Saeed Jalili, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, underlined the strong and deep cooperation relations as well as the historic friendship between the two countries and peoples. The two sides underlined the need for taking all measures to promote the economic ties to the level of the strategic political relations between Syria and Iran. During the meeting, Jalili underscored support to Syria in its struggle against the challenges and conspiracies to which it is exposed. The Prime Minister also discussed with Iranian Foreign Minister Ali Akbar Salehi the bilateral relations and the latest developments in the region. Al-Halaqi and Salehi said that Syria and Iran, through their cooperation, stand against the project and plots which aim at striking the resistance and destabilizing the region's security and stability. Salehi also expressed his country's support to the factors of Syria's struggle in the face of challenges. Al-Halaqi affirmed that the political program to solve the crisis in Syria as presented by President Bashar al-Assad constitutes the way out of the crisis, solving it through dialogue and peaceful resolutions. He appreciated Iran for its initiatives, which call for solving the crisis in Syria through dialogue and peaceful ways and rejecting the foreign intervention in Syria's domestic affairs. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more news about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Khalid Saqabani after a short break.